Hello and welcome back to my channel. Last week we were on the Gibb River Road, and this week I'm going to give you some tips that I picked up while doing this journey that made it much easier. So the first one is driving. You're going to have to let your tyres down. These roads are corrugated. They're like this. Most of the way through, sometimes you've got bad corrugations and sometimes it's not quite so bad. But in the main, you're going to be going over some very, very bumpy terrain. So let your tyres down. Now, what I was doing was when I was going into like the Gibb River Road or any of the national parks where I needed to change my tyre pressure, I would try and find someone coming out that had a similar vehicle and ask them, what did you let your tyre pressure down to and how did you find it? Gives you a good idea. But for the Gibb River Road, we put ours down to between 20 and 30. Now, there's a temptation to drive these slowly because you're going up and down, up and down, up and down, and you can feel everything falling all over the place in the van. It's very uncomfortable, but the trick is to speed up. So we were doing between 60 and 70, and it's going to be different depending on what vehicle you've got. But at that speed, you can basically ride over the corrugations and you don't feel it as bad. So yes, you're going over the bumps, but you don't feel them. You're kind of gliding over them. And so everything doesn't fall out as much in the back of the van and it's much more comfortable. But you need to find the speed that works for you. But honestly, when you're trying to go slow, you're going to feel everything and it makes you feel travel sick. And some parts, you're going to find it much harder to go faster. You're going to have potholes and dips in the road. And if there's a puddle, you can't see if it's a dip or not. So keep your eyes out, just go slow. Another thing is the dust. The dust is everywhere. And every time a vehicle goes past you or is in front of you, they're kicking up dust. They can't help it. There's just dust everywhere. You're kicking up dust. So every time you pass somebody, just slow down and wait for them to go past. See what the dust is like. Can you see? Sometimes you won't be able to see a thing. And likewise, when someone's in front of you, don't go too close to them because you won't be able to see. Caravans. Anyone towing is going to go slower than you. They can't help that. It's just what it's going to be. Don't be impatient. Don't try and overtake them because you're just going to make it dangerous for both of you. They will slow down and pull over when it's safe to do so. And that was definitely my experience. So everybody was just helping everybody along. And the other thing is water crossings, which are great fun. But of course you can't see what's in the water. So I don't suggest you go through those at 60, 70 kilometres an hour. Take your time because you just don't know what's down there. And the last thing really is in some areas you will get bigger boulders, bigger rocks to go over. Now you're going to know if your vehicle can cope with that or not. And you just take your time. I personally didn't find it that bad to drive. I kept my speed up. There was a few hairy bits. But in the main, I didn't find it that bad to drive. I really enjoyed it actually. I love four-wheel driving. But they're my tips on the driving. Now we're going to move on to supplies. So the Gibb River Road is the outback. It's very remote. So things like fuel, drinking water, food. You're not going to get very much of those on the Gibb River Road. Make sure you take enough drinking water with you. Take more than you think you're going to need. It's hot, very hot. And fuel. Make sure you fill up in Derby or El Cuestro or Connemara. There's very limited places to fill up on the Gibb River Road itself. And we filled up at Manning Gorge and you will pay for it. It wasn't the most expensive place in Australia, but it was up there. I think it was $2.80 we were paying a litre. Food shopping. You can get bits at some places. Like there's a little shop at Manning Gorge or Mount Barnett. But you're going to pay for it. It's not going to be cheap. So try and make sure you've got everything that you need. And drinking water is very difficult to get there. Filling up your tank, there isn't really anywhere to do it. Again, Manning Gorge, we did fill up our tank, But just take enough water with you to get you across that trip, depending on how long you're doing. We did 7 days, so we filled up the tank before we left, and we filled up lots of big jerry cans of drinking water to make sure we had enough. We did fill the tank up again at Manning Gorge, but just make sure you're carrying enough. And also that's going to depend whether you use your van for showers as well. And we'll come on to that in a minute. So there are lots and lots of campsites on the Gibb River Road to choose from. You've got station stays, you've got lots of free camping on there. Some of the camps have showers. So Windjammer Gorge had shower facilities and the stations have shower facilities. But if you're on a free camp or you're on the Pentecost River camp or in some of the more remote ones, there are no showers and no toilets. And so bear that in mind when you're planning your trip. If you don't have shower facilities where you're going to stay, if you do have shower facilities on your van, how much water you're going to need. But it's one thing to bear in mind. And the other thing is there are no bins. You have to carry your rubbish with you. Now there is a place to discard it halfway through at Mount Barn at Manning Gorge. So we put our rubbish in there then. But other than that, you're going to have to take it to either end with you. There are no bins. There are no dump points at all on the Gibb River Road. So you will have to manage that. There's no emptying your porta potty. It's a bit of a pain. But we did know that before we went on, so yeah, you have to manage that. And my final real tip is to not underestimate how hot it is on the Gibb River Road, because it's quite exposed. It is on the northern end of Australia, and even though we're at the end of the season and there wasn't any rain, so a lot of things have dried up, like some of the waterfalls have dried up, but the heat, it was, I wouldn't say it was humid, but it was, gosh, it was hot. And if you're doing lots of gorge walks and they're all exposed, it really takes it out of you. So make sure you have enough water and that you try and do your walks early in the morning before it gets too hot. I mean, we did Manning Gorge at 7 in the morning. That was still too hot. It's really, really hot. Don't forget your hat. But is it all worth it? Yeah, you know, you might have to sort out your toilet and your porta potty. You might not be able to shower every day. Even though you know you're not going to get fuel, it's going to cost you a fortune halfway through. But you will have the most amazing experience. And I did my video last week where I showed you our plan. And I have to tell you, I absolutely loved it. And you'll have a blast, honest you will. It's brilliant. Anyway, I hope those little tips helped. Any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. And if you like my video content, please subscribe, like. Thank you very much. See you all soon. Bye.